Hello and welcome to the Optimize Show. I am David Mammano, your host. Thanks for joining us today. Today on the show, I'm really excited. I have a great guest and a friend here in Rochester doing some great things in the whole world of HR and talent development. Kevyn Rustici.
Yes.
Welcome to the show. Welcome to Optimize.
Yeah, welcome. This is a pretty cool spot.
Well, thank you. Thank you. You know, we're just getting started. You're one of the first guests, so we appreciate that very much.
Yeah.
So Kevyn, you are, I love your title, Strategic Human Capital Consultant. That sounds really fancy.
It's fancy.
Right? I mean, it went from in the 80s, up to the 80s, HR was personnel.
Personnel, yes.
Right? And, human resources. Now there's like talent director, talent acquisition. But you're human capital. Tell me, what does that mean?
Yeah, so I think there's two sides of HR, right? And I think my evolution is just based off of experience. I grew up in an environment where HR was that redheaded, ugly stepchild. I didn't really understand what their purpose was, and everybody joked about them around the sales table,
Mm-hmm.
And
kind of like The Office with Toby.
Correct, exactly. Yeah, you avoided HR at all costs, and if you saw them, it was bad news for you. So that's kind of what I grew up with, and going through open enrollment meetings. This was really the first time that you're sometimes meeting HR, and they didn't seem to know what they were talking about, and I didn't know what I was talking about, but I was too afraid to ask for questions. So if that was my experience, and my experience alone, and kind of some other life events when my wife was having our first child, I realized that we were missing those critical life moments within our employees' life cycle. And if it was happening to me, I assumed it was probably happening to a lot of others. So just looking at what was the problem, why wasn't HR as strategic or as progressive as employees needed them to be, where was the problem? And it came down to time. They didn't really have the time to invest in those strategic initiatives, and they were constantly doing tactical and still do administrative work. And then it came down to their relationship within the business. So human capital more strikes the balance between business and people. More human relationships with work is kind of where we're evolving to now as a society. Yeah. So it's been an evolution, but I found data and science to really help business leaders arm them with the right insights to drive decisions, because 78%, I believe, use just their gut instinct and intuition in those financial statements. So. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, so we'll dive right into data. As little as 5-10 years ago in beyond, it was all gut decision. Yeah. Most companies really didn't even know what data was, right? To measure. How do you see companies effectively, measuring and using data for a better workplace experience?
Definitely, and everybody kind of, I think, overcomplicates it. I think there's been these breadcrumbs that your employees and your business are really telling you how healthy the organization and the whole business truly is. And I believe Ocean Tomo came out a few years ago and said 90% or up to 90% of businesses is intangible today, meaning we're moving more towards that knowledge-based world. And it's really the understanding of business, kind of seeing what breadcrumbs do we have, and even at just the surface level, descriptive data is more data than people are using today to drive decisions. And I've seen it, you need both qualitative and quantitative data. You need to kind of have conversations and meet with employees and do focus groups and surveys to really put some words behind those numbers. Data is out there. It's been out there. I think the appetite is now higher than it's used to be, but
people are using it more correctly.
Exactly, and I think it comes with some ethics, right? And I think you need some privacy in there as well. But I think data, we're comfortable and as individuals to give up our individualized data for that customized experience. And kind of our consumer behaviors continue to leak into our work behaviors and expectations, and it really is all about that employee experience. So leveraging those data and really turning into insights, but having the ability to translate it to the CFO, to the CEO, to the operations, to marketing and sales, so then they prioritize it, is really the missing link. And I think that's really the hardest part.
That's the opportunity.
Correct.
Because companies are collecting data, but then they don't know what to do with it, how to implement it.
It's just numbers on a spreadsheet.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of like your strategic plan.
Yeah.
You spend 2 weeks creating it, and then it ends up in some drawer and nobody looks at it, right?
It's a total guess, right? And that's really what I saw in businesses, and all kidding aside, but we're really good at setting outputs.
Yeah.
We're terrible at working backwards and actually understanding what inputs drive those outputs that we desire.
Yeah.
That's why business plans, just you sit back and I sit back and, you want to hit 10% growth. Great.
Yeah.
So does everybody else. When was the last time you did it? And what's your employee retention or your customer retention rate?
Yeah.
If it's 85%, you're actually talking about 25% growth.
Yeah.
So now how do we back into that number? And it does come down to the talent perspective.
Right.
But
yeah.
I think we've been so financially focused on the data, because that is the data that CEOs were armed with. As CFOs, those bookkeepers became CFOs, just like personnel became HR.
Yeah.
But the CEOs, 79% of them were surveyed in 2020 that they really wanted to re-envision HR. So the CEOs are asking for it, the people are asking for it. It's really up to HR now to evolve or step up to the plate to evolve their skills to really help organizations thrive in the new normal.
So you mentioned a little bit about how leadership is getting that data. Again, what are some great ways to capture data? That you see some best practices of companies. You said surveys.
Yeah, surveys are great. Focus groups is another great way. Town halls where employees can openly ask questions. I hate exit interviews because it's usually too late. So stay interviews, performance reviews. But it's really not looking at it in the silos that are created intentionally or unintentionally within business, because you need to look at operations data. You need to look at sales data, and then you add the people data to it, you can start to see why things are happening. Finance data is old, and if you and I asked a CFO tomorrow, what's the one number you believe on your balance sheet, they'll tell us cash. All those other numbers can be manipulated, to your point, to share whatever story the business wants to say. In actuality, we're starting to see some change, but human capital metrics are actually better predictors of business success and future success.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I knew you a little bit before, but I got to know you a lot more at last year's Disrupt HR conference. You were the host, you were the MC.
Yes.
It's a fantastic job. You were great.
Following in your footsteps.
You were like the Jimmy Fallon of Disrupt HR conference. I was a speaker.
Yes.
So thanks for that great introduction.
No, of course.
So what do you so Disrupt HR, for those that don't know, has speakers that speak. When I did it, it was 5 minutes, just 5 minute punches, right? 5 minutes. Now I think it's up to 15 minutes.
No, they still had 5 this year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they did not change it as
boom,
much
boom,
as.
boom. All right.
We got a lot to say in 5 minutes.
Well, and they moved the slides. You got to keep on going. I was like, oh my god, okay. And but really, at the end of the day, it's a good 10-ish speakers that are presenting some strategies that are very cutting edge.
Yes.
One of the things that I researched and presented was when you're hiring somebody, have them suggest their salary, their compensation, right? If they say $500,000, we'll say, okay, seriously, but then you get an expectation of what they're looking for, and can we make that work? And what are the expectations in the job to make that compensation package work? And you can be very clear with the vision. What are some things that you see from the conference and just in general of some really cool cutting edge, HR strategies these days?
Yeah, there's a ton out there. Maybe before we answer that, because everybody listens to these ideas, and I got challenged the other night. I was giving a presentation on just managing and leading a culture with this multi-generational workforce. And one of the HR practitioners stopped me and said, hey, I'm tired of reading these articles. I'm tired of hearing all these cutting edge ideas, because nobody's listening to me. And I can't possibly present that to my leader to actually pull that off. And I think they read Dave Ulrich and they read some of the very prolific HR leaders out there from the academia side that really don't help HR develop the internal relationships necessary, that trust, stakeholder management, to really get these creative ideas across the finish line. So I'd like to just say that first. But creative ideas, I thought one of the other great ones from Disrupt, I think somebody shared it at the beginning, was just 15 minutes. The whole company takes 15 minutes at lunch from 12 to, or I think it was even a half an hour, just to get out. Everybody got out. Everybody started walking around. I think you're starting to see companies evolve to the 4-day work week. You were just in Romania, so now we're testing that very much out in the EU, and then we're having some companies now here. And it's less managing of the hours, it's more managing the work and the performance. So it is an evolution of our previous conditioning from Henry Ford that it was 8 to 5, and this is when people are most productive.
Clock in.
Correct.
Clock out.
Exactly. I think we've evolved as people thanks to the tools and technology and advancement of man. But I think we can still take that next leap, and we haven't even started talking about AI yet, because that is that quantum leap forward. And with 2 jobs to every available candidate, people have to be unique and outside the box. So your idea shouldn't be viewed as that crazy, because being bold and being different and being ahead, instead of leveraging benchmarking data to just catch up to your competition last year, what can you do differently if you're really in tune with the voice of your employees? What changes can you actually bring that they want, desire, and need?
So I think a big theme of the past few years is not judging on hours, but judging on results.
Correct.
I don't care if Kevin works from 8 to 5 or 2 to 10, is he getting the job done?
Exactly.
And if I need him on a Zoom meeting for a client or whatever, he's there, right?
Exactly.
And because you can have somebody working 9 to 5, and they can be doing the whole quiet quit thing and not getting anything done. They can be sitting there checking Instagram, right?
All day.
So basically, judging on results.
Correct.
And there are some great people that do amazing work from 9 p.m. to midnight.
Exactly.
For me, I shut down.
Yes.
I'm like,
I need to recharge.
Oh yeah, I'm going down. And if I'm in bed by 10 o'clock, I'm like, oh, I'm up late. So, but I'm up at 5 o'clock.
Start sweating,
working out. And then I'm, in the morning, boom, I am just so focused and energetic and productive. 3 o'clock hits, I'm kind of like, I'm like that robot that starts to run out of oil, right? So
I think you really speak to like engagement. So it's a term that we've used for so long, but it's hovered at 30% since we've been measuring it. And I
30%. Let's repeat that.
30%.
So that means 70% of your people
are not engaged.
Correct. And probably like 30% of them out of that 70%, if we like cut that in maybe a third-ish, are like actively disengaged.
Correct. Actively checked out, doing the
So they're not like not engaged.
Minimum.
They're like looking for another job or quiet quitting.
And I think that's like, do we want to be more transactional or transformational? And I asked that to HR, I asked that to businesses. But if it's transactional, it's just a job. I'm only here for these hours. You're getting me for these hours, and you get what you get kind of mentality. Transformational, it's a career, right? It's a part of your life. It's you're tapping on all your abilities and strengths and still developing because you're surrounded with other great people. And I think that's what people are asking for today, is bring humanity back into the workforce. Really learn from nature. Diversity, nature will be there long after you and I, and it's been here long before any of us and anything that we've done.
And we'll be fertilizing nature.
Correct.
Right? So,
exactly. So, but they teach us that diversity is required in order to thrive. So we can take a lot of lessons from nature if we're willing to actually listen and use data and science. And that's just what we're all about. I love using data and science to help businesses really make smarter decisions. And I just call them more informed decisions. Previously, you only had this information. Now you have all of this information. Let's work together on formulating a strategy that you think is going to be best.
Yeah, it's fantastic. What are some of the challenges that you see in today's world for leaders that maybe weren't around years ago, and some ideas of how to crush those challenges? So
I think it's challenges. I think we used to shy away, and you can probably tap back in, and probably why you got out of the working world and started really doing your own thing as much as possible was it wasn't for you. But you had that realization probably very earlier on within your generational norm.
I was 25.
Correct. My dad worked his job. He stayed in his job. He retired at 67. Told me he could retire 2 years before that. But he was conditioned by the Great Depression generation. So you stayed in that job. You were grateful for that job. They could take good enough care of you, but it was a job and it was safe. Call that like career entrapment. Because we also didn't see, as an accountant, as CPA, what other opportunities are available to me today.
It was just a job. You were doing a job. You were making the money.
Exactly.
Take care of your family. Go on vacation.
You could separate, like Severance on HBO. You could separate those sides of your brain because you were told that you could. But that's really what has changed. So I think bringing more, we sheltered our personal and professional space so much. Bringing more emotion, being more vulnerable with people is really a superpower today to reconnect. I think we have some rebuilding of trust that needs to happen. I think we all had a little, whether it's PTSD from losing a loved one from COVID or PTSD from that bad boss that didn't take that stress well during COVID, whatever it might be, we all had our own experience, but now we're realizing what are we willing to trade our time for? So really organizations being able to truly track performance on an individualized basis not only helps that individual in their performance and their development, but it also helps the organization understand and see what potential or possibilities there are. A lot of organizations, frankly, that aren't service related can go down to a 4-day work week. Why? Why don't they? I don't know. I can't answer that for you. I bet they would have a line out their door, David, if they would.
What a great recruiting
What a great recruiting tool.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
All right, last question. Somebody is starting a company today, and they get to start from scratch. Clean slate. No preconceived notions. What are the top 3 to 5 things you're going to tell them to do from a human capital perspective to get it right from the start?
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of asking of good questions of who you want or who you envision to be on that bus. I tell everybody that the establishment of trust is essential. So really understanding people, process, technology, partnerships, and communication. Those would be my top 5. You focus on those items, how they interact and how they work with each other as you grow and as you scale.
Partnership, process,
technology,
communication. All right.
To unlock performance.
Excellent. Cool. So you would have them focus on those 5 things to get it right from the start.
Correct.
Beautiful. Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, Kevin, this has been phenomenal.
This has been awesome.
I appreciate you being on the show and sharing your nuggets of knowledge. And I wish you continued massive success. And I know we're going to be doing some stuff together as well to make the world a better place in the world of the workplace. And so looking forward to that. But thanks again for being on the show. Truly appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And thank you everybody for watching the Optimize Show. Really appreciate you. Hope you learned some. Definitely check us out. More on all of our social media, of course, YouTube. Like us, love us, share us, subscribe so you get notified. We're building something great here. We're excited. Really appreciate you. Thank you so much, and have an amazing day.